A millionaire mistakes a poor cleaning lady for a VIP guest at a luxury costume party. Before we dive into the story, let us know in the comments, what city are you watching from? Enjoy the story. Emily Lane was scrubbing the marble floor of the Ashton mansion with her usual dedication, knees on the ground, yellow gloves and a spray bottle hanging from her apron pocket. The party? A luxurious costume ball, filled with bored rich people dressed as pirates, Greek gods, fairies, and astronauts in suits. But Emily wasn't in costume. The cleaning uniform was real. The dirt on the floor too. And her salary? Just as invisible as she was. Suddenly, someone stopped behind her. Shiny Italian shoes, a glass of champagne, an expensive cologne, and a deep voice. Wow, such realism. You're really taking this cleaning lady role seriously, huh? Emily slowly stood up, turning on her heels with the mop in hand. There he was, tall, charming, perfectly dressed in a black suit, with a smug smile on his face. Gabriel North, billionaire, CEO of North Enterprises, the host of the evening. She looked at him for a moment and realized he thought she was a guest dressed as a cleaning lady. Emily raised an eyebrow, held back a laugh, and played along. Well, I do like to really get into character. That wine stain in the corner nearly brought me to tears. Gabriel laughed, clearly enjoying what he thought was a performance. You're definitely the most original guest here. Everyone came in expensive costumes, and you brought a broom. Yeah, I had to fight the gardener for the best costume. Luckily I won the coin toss, she replied sarcastically, leaning on the mop like it was a sword. I'm impressed. Really. You even got down on the floor. That's dedication. Thanks. My next act involves battling a possessed vacuum cleaner. It's going to be thrilling. He laughed out loud. You're hilarious. How come I've never seen you at one of these events before? Emily gave a sly smile. Oh, I usually come in through the back. Mysterious too. Wow, I'm starting to think you're the best part of this party. She tilted her head, dramatically. And you're the billionaire who thinks he's complimenting a cleaning lady in costume. A second of silence. Gabriel blinked, confused, laughed again, and said, Okay, you're good. You almost had me fooled. Almost, huh? She said with a wink. Imagine if it were true. What a twist. He offered her the glass of champagne. Care for a toast, Miss Lane? Emily Lane. Seriously, that sounds like a spy's name. Now it's perfect. Cleaning lady costume with a secret agent name. Emily chuckled and accepted the glass with an exaggerated, almost comical gesture. She knew it was all a misunderstanding, but for the first time in a long while, she was actually having fun. And for the first time in a long while, someone looked at her without judgment, even if it was by mistake. They kept talking among the colorful lights, the ridiculous costumes, and the free laughter. Emily, not lying, but also not telling the full truth. Gabriel, charmed by the spontaneity of the mystery guest. Deep down, she knew the illusion wouldn't last long. But at that moment, dancing with a stranger billionaire, with the spray bottle still clipped to her apron, Emily chose to live the moment, just for one night. The next morning, while social media buzzed with photos of extravagant costumes and videos of celebrities tripping over their superhero capes, Emily Lane was on her knees again. But now, scrubbing the floor of the small kitchen in the trailer she shared with her mother. The same movement as the night before, but now without lights, without music, without champagne, and without confusion involving billionaires. Just the smell of bleach, cold coffee in the sink, and overdue bills held to the fridge with a magnet that said, Smile, God loves you. Emily was 23, but life had already placed more weight on her shoulders than on many adults 3 times her age. Daughter of Lorraine Lane, a former teacher retired due to disability after a stroke, Emily had learned early to do whatever it took to keep their home, or rather their trailer, running. Her father disappeared when she was 8. A car accident with no witnesses and lots of questions. The police never solved it, and the pain just stayed locked away like a box in the back of a closet. But Emily was never one to feel sorry for herself for long. While other girls collected shoes, Emily collected cleaning cloths with names. Her favorite was Gertrude, the toughest one. While some dreamed of traveling the world, she dreamed of taking an interior design course. But for now, she was content rearranging the trailer furniture on weekends, moving the armchair like it was a bold artistic revolution. She worked for a company called Super Clean Events, a cleaning crew that specialized in high-end events. Working there meant polishing more shine than grime, and hearing more ridiculous requests than genuine compliments. But Emily had one advantage none of the others did. She knew how to laugh. She laughed at the situations, at the clients, at the do not touch signs in the marble bathrooms. She even laughed at her own life, maybe so she wouldn't cry. And maybe that's why on that night at the costume party, even kneeling with a mop in hand, she didn't get offended when a billionaire mistook her for a VIP guest. In fact, she thought it was funny. The world was so absurd sometimes that if someone wanted to believe her life was a stage play, why not let them? That same morning, she had made oatmeal for her mom, sat at the plastic kitchen table, and told her the whole story, laughing between spoonfuls. "You should have seen it, Mom. The richest guy at the party praising me for mopping the floor with such passion. Said I was really getting into character. I almost gave myself the award for Best Dramatic Janitor in Hollywood." Lorraine, who had trouble speaking but smiled with all her love, just murmured, "And you let him believe that?" Emily shrugged. "Well, I didn't lie. I just didn't correct him. He thought I was a guest? Fine by me. I just can't fall in love, right? Those stories only work in telenovelas." But deep down, something in her had changed. It was like, for the first time in a long time, someone had truly seen Emily, even if it was by mistake. Sometimes, the soul just needs a moment of illusion, to start remembering its worth. That same Emily who danced in the hall to the sound of jazz, laughing at herself and leaving a billionaire curious, was still the one who came home and sorted the recycling with labeled bins. But something had awakened in her that night. And who was there to notice? Only a certain mutt named Spud, who she adopted after finding him abandoned near a fancy restaurant that threw out food like the world was only hungry for appearances. Spud was her quiet companion during thoughtful moments. And that afternoon, lying on the worn-out couch with Spud snoring on the rug, she whispered, "Imagine, Spud, if he found out the truth?" The dog let out a long sigh. Emily did too. Then she laughed. "He'd probably run off to wash his hands, huh? Bet he's never held a mop in his life. Probably thinks disinfectant comes in a wine bottle." And then the phone rang. "Hello? Emily Lane? This is North Enterprises. Mr. Gabriel North asked if you could come to the office tomorrow at 9 a.m. He'd like to speak with you in person." Emily went silent. She looked at Spud. The dog opened one eye, scratched his ear, and lay back down. She cleared her throat. "Just one question. Does he know who I am?" "He only said it was urgent, and that if your second performance is as good as the first, he'd have an offer for you." She hung up, stood still, then looked at her reflection in the metal spoon. "Okay, either he's going to fire me from a job I don't even have, or hire me for something even more ridiculous." Spud barked. Emily got up. "Time to scrub the sneakers with our best cleaner, Spud, because tomorrow the cleaning lady's going upstairs to the boss's floor." Gabriel North didn't know what silence was. Not the real, deep, unsettling kind. His life was filled with noise, contracts, meetings, phones ringing, notifications flashing across multiple screens. He was the kind of man who slept with his phone next to the bed and woke up at 5 a.m. to meditate. For exactly 3 timed minutes, CEO of North Enterprises, a holding company with branches in tech, construction, events, and, ironically, even industrial cleaning. His schedule was blocked into 15-minute chunks. Even lunches had deadlines. And his heart, well, that was compartmentalized too. Ever since the divorce from Harper, a socialite whose main goal in life was to be photographed without repeating the same earrings, Gabriel avoided any relationship that didn't fit neatly into a spreadsheet. He had a son, Noah, 8 years old, who lived with him every other week. Gabriel tried to be a present father, in his own way. He hired the best tutors, paid for the most exclusive camps, and bought every toy advertised on TV. But still, the boy seemed to prefer talking to the driver rather than his own father. Gabriel didn't see that as a failure, just another variable that was hard to calculate. But then came the party. That damn costume party. He hadn't even wanted to go. His business partner insisted to keep up appearances with investors and sponsors of the city's new architectural project. Gabriel showed up dressed like a secret agent on a business mission. Basically just himself, but with a fake lapel pin and a smile more forced than usual. He was bored, surrounded by people in feathers, sequins, and champagne spilling all over floors that probably cost more than a new car. That's when he saw her. A woman crouched in the middle of the ballroom, cleaning up a wine stain with the kind of focus you'd expect from someone winning an award. And what did he think? Fantastic. A guest who really takes realism seriously. There was something about her. Not in an exaggerated beauty way, though she was beautiful in a very natural kind of way. Her features were bright, her cheeks flushed, and her eyes had this look like they were laughing at the world, even when she was serious. It was something else. It was her presence. The way she didn't seem to be trying to impress anyone. As if she just didn't care, like she belonged there in her own way. That's why he walked over. Why he called her dedicated, impressive, and assumed she was an actress or some kind of performance artist hired to entertain the guests. And that's why he was drawn to her, even if he didn't quite know why. She laughed at his jokes, teased him back. She was witty without being rude, smart without trying to prove anything. She told him her name, Emily Lane, and he remembered it like it was some precious secret. But the next morning, reality came knocking. The video of their conversation had already gone viral. Billionaire flirts with real cleaning lady at elite party? Just a misunderstanding or an unlikely romance? TikTok explodes over hilarious moment between CEO and cleaning staff. And the comments? A storm of theories, jokes, and public humiliation for Gabriel. For the first time in years, he found himself vulnerable to public opinion. And for a man like him, that was the ultimate sin. But instead of pushing him away, it pulled him closer. Because when he rewatched the video, something became clear. She knew. Emily knew he'd mistaken her for a guest. And instead of correcting him, she played along, with style, with irony, with confidence. And if there was one thing Gabriel North respected, maybe even more than money, it was authenticity and courage. So that morning, he called his personal assistant. Find out who Emily Lane is, where she works. I want her at the headquarters tomorrow at 9 a.m. Under what reason, sir? Tell her, I have an offer, one she won't want to refuse. He hung up, and for the first time in a long while, he stood by the window of his building. Looking out at the city he helped build, and wondering where she might fit in the puzzle. The next day, Emily walked into North Enterprises, wearing her best jeans, some old sneakers she cleaned with a toothbrush, and a turtleneck she borrowed from her neighbor. She tied her hair up in a messy bun and put on strawberry-colored lipstick because, you never know, she thought. The lobby was big enough to host a basketball game, with room left over for a wedding. Elegant receptionists, modern art, security everywhere. Emily swallowed hard but kept her head up. Let's have a little fun for those who read the comments, shall we? Type hot dog in the comments. Only the ones who made it this far will get it. Now let's get back to the story. I'm here to see Mr. North. The receptionist looked her up and down. Name? Emily Lane. He's expecting me. They were the longest 10 minutes of her life before she was called to go up. Gabriel North met her in a glass room on the 42nd floor. Panoramic city view. Air conditioning cold enough to freeze emotions. And there he was, standing with his hands in his pockets. Emily Lane, Gabriel North, she matched his formal tone. Nice to see you again, with less confetti and more concrete this time. He laughed. You surprised me, and that doesn't happen often. Must be a gift all cleaning ladies have in disguise. Or maybe the talent of women who know how to handle the unexpected. Silence, but not the awkward kind. A curious kind of silence. He stepped closer. I want to make you an offer. I saw how you handled a situation off script. That's rare anywhere, especially in the corporate world. If it involves cracking jokes about mops during meetings, I'm in. Actually, I want you to lead the creative setup of our new company building. The whole space. A modern, functional, accessible concept. You'd have full creative freedom. Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Very. And I'll pay you 5 times what you make cleaning ballrooms. What if I tell you I've never done anything like that before? Then I'd say the best people are the ones who start doing what they love, even before anyone pays them for it. Emily crossed her arms, thinking. So now you're trying to turn a cleaning lady into a luxury designer. Is that it? I want to see what happens when real talent is put in the right place. She looked straight at the man in front of her. Wealthy, powerful, cold on the outside, but with a spark in his eyes she hadn't seen at the party. Emily smiled. All right, but just so you know, my favorite color palette is anything that doesn't stain easily. Gabriel held out his hand. Welcome to the project. She shook it firmly, and in that handshake 2 completely different worlds really started to collide. No longer by accident, but by choice. On her first day as a temporary creative consultant, Emily Lane arrived at the North Enterprises headquarters with courage on her face and fear tucked deep in her backpack. Gabriel had placed her under the supervision of the project's lead architect, a Frenchman named Laurent, who spoke more with his hands than with his mouth. You're the cleaning decorator? He asked, wrinkling his nose like he'd smelled a dirty rag. Emily took a deep breath and answered with her best defense, sarcasm. Yes, but don't worry. I only decorate using vinegar and baking soda. Laurent huffed, but Gabriel walked into the room and, with a simple nod, silenced the Frenchman like he had remote control. She reports directly to me. But Mr. North, with all due respect, she has no formal training, and you have no common sense. See, we all have our talents. Emily held back a laugh, but inside she was keeping score. Little by little, she began to move through the new office floors, offering simple, effective ideas that surprised the suits. Plants in the hallways to bring warmth, modular desks to avoid isolation, neutral colors with pops of orange, because no one can fall asleep with orange flashing on the walls, she said. But with every step forward came the whispers. Some employees recognized her from the viral party video. Others just gave her dismissive looks. That's the mop girl. The boss's favorite. There's probably some kind of deal going on. Emily heard it all, and she hid behind the same smile she'd worn since she was 12, when her mother used to say, "The world will treat you like trash. It's up to you to decide if you'll shine anyway." By the 3rd week, Gabriel started showing up more often at the project. Sometimes just to check the progress. Sometimes just to hear Emily mock the carpet choices. Sometimes just to hear her voice. They didn't hide the lightness between them so much anymore. The silly jokes, the unexpected laughs, the glances that lingered half a second too long. "You've changed," he said one afternoon, leaning against the model room wall. "Oh, it's the new disinfectant. It smells like self-esteem." He laughed, she laughed, and the silence that followed said more than any words. But what seemed like a feel-good romantic comedy with a predictable ending turned into an earthquake the next morning. The digital tabloid Manhattan Secrets dropped a bombshell. North Enterprises CEO involved with cleaning staff after costume party. Subheadline: Sources claim the relationship began during work hours. The article included a photo of the two. Gabriel smiling, Emily with her arms crossed in front of the company building. Nothing incriminating. But the article made up what the photo didn't show. According to it, Emily had been promoted in exchange for personal favors. There were anonymous quotes from employees. Nasty theories. Vicious insinuations. In the comments, another one who climbed the ladder with a mop. Cleaning lady with VIP talent. The boss's new love? Must be a love for drama. Emily read it all with wide eyes and frozen hands. The first thing she did was rush to Gabriel's office. "Did you see this?" He looked up from his tablet and nodded, way too calm. "Well, Sue." "Sue? That's what you have to say? Do you know what this is going to do to me?" "To you?" "Emily, this is a direct attack on my reputation." She went quiet for a moment, like she'd just been punched in the stomach. "Oh, I see. Your reputation. You're being attacked too." "No, I'm being crushed. You'll go to a meeting with your lawyer. I'll go back to being the cleaning lady who got too ambitious." Gabriel stood and stepped closer. "That's not how I see it." "No? Then tell me, did you ever think about telling people you hired me because you saw talent? Or did you just let them think I'm a distraction?" He didn't answer, and this time the silence screamed louder than any scandal. Emily walked out. She took the stairs down all 42 floors. At the bottom, she saw her face on a newsstand, smiling next to Gabriel. Caption: Beauty and cleaning, North's new love. On the sidewalk, reporters crowded around. Cameras, microphones, questions without filters. "Emily, were you really a cleaner? How did you get that job? Are you dating the boss?" She covered her face with her hand and ran. "Not home. not to work. She ran anywhere that felt far away from that plastic world. Meanwhile, at Gabriel's penthouse, his personal assistant asked, "Would you like PR to release a statement saying Ms. Lane isn't part of the company?" He thought for a few seconds, then replied coldly, "No, don't say anything. Let the story die." But what he didn't realize was that by staying silent, he ended up confirming the lie, and Emily found out, not from the news, but from someone she trusted. The company's receptionist, Mrs. May, found her the next afternoon, sitting on the trailer steps, holding a glass of milk with swollen eyes. "He didn't say a word, dear. Nothing. As if he didn't exist." Emily gripped the glass tightly, swallowed her pain and said, "It's okay. I've been invisible before. I'd just forgotten how it felt." The city didn't stop, and neither did Emily Lane, even though every part of her wanted to lie down, wrap herself in a blanket, and shut out the world. Emily knew one thing: shame doesn't pay the bills. So 2 days after the scandal, she put on her best button-up blouse, the one without bleach stains, fixed her bun on top of her head, and stepped out of the trailer walking as confidently as she could fake. "Where are you going, sweetheart?" her mother asked with a weak voice. "To take my name back." And that's exactly what she did. She didn't go back to the North Enterprises headquarters. She didn't talk to reporters. She didn't look for Gabriel. Emily went straight to the one place where she'd always felt valued: her neighborhood community. The community center where she volunteered teaching home organization on Tuesdays. Mrs. Ruth's store, where she helped redesign the window displays using recycled materials. The small library where she sorted children's books. There, no one called her the undercover janitor or the scandal star. There, she was just Emily. And that was enough. But fate, with its own sense of humor, was just getting started. While she was rearranging children's books at the community center, a man in a navy blue suit walked in. "Are you Emily Lane?" She slowly turned around. The man held a folder and a nervous smile. "I'm from Grant Publishing. I saw your interview on the community channel yesterday." "Interview?" "Yes. A lady with blue hair spoke with you and recorded the whole thing. The part where you said, 'I don't need a badge to prove my worth. I create my own opportunities, even if it's with tape and creativity.'" Emily's eyes widened. That had been a casual chat with Mrs. Ruth, not an interview. That ended up online. It went viral. "And honestly, you spoke better than most influencers out there. I'd like to talk to you about writing a monthly column. Something like urban survival design." Emily almost knocked over a stack of books. "You want me to, right? We want more than that. We want your perspective, your creativity, your story." She smiled. For the first time since the scandal, she felt alive again. And that was just the beginning. Week 1. Emily launches her column. The article, "How to Decorate for Under $50 and Still Impress Your Mother-in-Law," breaks view records. Week 2. A local TV show invites her for a weekly segment. She shares tips like reusing cans, fixing up furniture with old fabric, and making scented candles from orange peels. Week 3. An influencer reposts one of her quotes. "Being poor isn't ugly. What's ugly is treating those with less like they're invisible." The public loved it. Comments poured in. "This woman is a ray of sunshine." She made it without a red carpet. Emily Lane for president. The irony? Emily was rising faster outside of Gabriel's company than she ever had inside it. Meanwhile, Gabriel watched it all from a distance. On his laptop screen, he followed the numbers, the videos, the columns, the interviews. Emily was thriving, and she wasn't using his last name. She didn't need his approval. She had risen on her own, and that left him torn. Part of Gabriel deeply admired what he saw. Another part felt out of place. He was used to being the starting point for great stories. He didn't know how to handle someone growing in spite of him. Not because of him. That's when Noah, his son, walked into the room and said, "Dad, why did you let her go?" Gabriel closed the laptop, caught off guard. "It's not that simple, son." "It is. You stayed quiet when people said bad things about her. If it were me, you would have spoken up." The boy crossed his arms. "She helped me with my science project, taught me to glue with homemade paste and build a model with soap boxes. She was cool. And now, she's gone." Gabriel said nothing. That night, he stepped out onto the penthouse balcony. The cold wind hit his face, but he barely noticed. He kept thinking about everything he didn't say. Everything he didn't do. For the first time, someone had touched his life without asking for anything in return. And he had let the world label her without lifting a finger. But that wasn't going to happen again. The next day, Emily got a call from the community center. "Emily, there's a man here. Tall, expensive suit. Looks like he's never sat on a couch covered in plastic." "Is it him?" "He brought a toolbox and a bunch of plants." Emily hung up and ran over there. Gabriel was on his knees, trying to install a shelf. He was sweating buckets, had a scratch on his arm, and looked like he'd cursed every screw in the store. "What are you doing?" she asked, stunned. "Trying to make things right, with nails and plants. Is it working?" She crossed her arms, looking at the mess around him. "You brought ferns to a community building?" "I thought it would give the place a more tropical feel." She laughed. "So did he." "Well, I don't know if ferns fix hurt feelings, but for the effort you earn a point." "1 point? Out of how many?" "Out of 1,000. "Great, only 999 to go." Emily shook her head. But deep down, she knew. Gabriel North was trying. No speech, no spotlight. In his awkward way, he was really trying, and she was ready to see where that might lead. Gabriel North was never the kind of man who bent easily. Not to competition, not to feelings. All his life, he believed vulnerability was a risk, and any sign of weakness was an invitation to fall. So he built walls. High, cold, impenetrable. He preferred numbers over people, meetings over dates, contracts over conversations. Until Emily Lane walked into his life like a storm disguised as a breeze. Since the scandal, a lot had changed. But what surprised Gabriel wasn't how much people were talking about Emily. It was how he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her gestures, her clever remarks, the way she handled chaos with humor. It was like she had shown him a whole new world. One where being genuine mattered more than appearances. Emily, on the other hand, stood strong. After being thrown into the eye of the public storm, she could have disappeared. But she didn't. She showed up in the most authentic way she could. She went back to her community, restarted projects with kids and retired women, redecorated the local library with hand-painted produce boxes, and used what she had: talent, strength, and courage. The world noticed. Local papers started calling for interviews. YouTube channels wanted to know more about the woman who overcame prejudice with creativity and humor. One comment she made, recorded accidentally by a friend during a casual chat, went viral. "If the world sees me as a cleaner, that's fine. What it forgets is that a cleaner also decorates, organizes, and transforms." That sentence spread like wildfire, and it was enough to change the course of her story. Gabriel watched all of this from a distance, and the more he saw Emily shine, the more he realized he might never have truly understood what it meant to have value. Because she, without needing anything from him, was showing everyone, and herself, that she had always possessed something precious: dignity. And the difference now was that the world was finally paying attention. Emily didn't want to see Gabriel again. It still hurt to remember his silence when she needed him the most. But then, out of nowhere, he started showing up. At first, quietly. A note left at the community center with a potted plant, for the architect of hope. Then, in person. Sleeves rolled up, sweating while trying to install crooked shelves. It was ridiculous. And also, genuinely sweet. She could have told him to leave. But she didn't. Because deep down, something about that clumsy attempt to fix with actions what couldn't be fixed with words touched her heart. They began seeing each other more. No labels, no promises. She organized charity sales. He showed up with quiet donations. She ran a recycled paper craft workshop. And he, even though he couldn't fold a paper airplane, volunteered to paint tables, even if he ended up with paint in his hair. At one of these events, Gabriel picked up the microphone at the end of the evening and surprised everyone. He spoke only a few words, but they carried weight. "I was trained to recognize numbers, metrics, results, but this woman taught me how to recognize real worth. And that, no graph can explain." Emily lowered her eyes. Her heart wanted to believe. Her mind was still protecting itself. On the way home, he walked her to the bus stop. The wind was cold. She rubbed her hands together, trying to hide the chill. He took off his scarf and, without saying a word, wrapped it gently around her neck. She didn't take it off. "You don't have to do this," she said, not looking directly at him. "I know, but I want to," he replied. They stood in silence for a few seconds. Then she smiled, that crooked half-smile he loved so much. "You're getting dangerous, Gabriel. You don't make me angry like you used to." He let out a quiet laugh. "Maybe I'm learning how to be human." And there, on the cold sidewalk, two completely different worlds began to truly meet. Not with kisses, but with actions. Not with promises, but with changes. Gabriel started to listen more. He cut back on work. He began taking Noah to gatherings at the community center. And for the first time in a long time, father and son laughed together without needing expensive toys or fancy outings. Everything was simple and so powerful. Emily changed too. She started to trust again, to let herself laugh more, to share fears, dreams, even plans. Little by little, the image of the distant billionaire was replaced by the image of a man who tries. The transformation wasn't about her becoming more refined or him becoming an average guy. It was about finding common ground, where respect, affection, and honesty were more important than social differences. One afternoon, while they were setting up a workshop for recycled toys, Noah came up to Emily and said, with the kind of honesty only a child can have, "You're the coolest person I've ever met. You don't even seem like a grown-up." Emily smiled, crouching down to look him in the eyes. "And you're the smartest boy in the world. Just don't tell your dad or he'll get jealous." Noah laughed, and Gabriel, listening from a distance, smiled quietly. That night, at home, he found a printed photo from the costume party video. Emily, kneeling, spray bottle in hand, badge hanging from her neck. Himself, laughing, unaware of the mistake he was making. He placed the photo in a picture frame. Beside it, he added a handwritten note she had given him long ago. "If you want to find me, I'll be where simple things still matter." Gabriel held the frame with both hands. He had bought companies, built skyscrapers, won awards. But now, all he wanted was to learn how to live in that world of simple things where Emily Lane reigned without needing a throne. Because sometimes, you have to lose control to find what really matters. And in that moment, he knew, if there was still a chance with her, he wouldn't let it slip away. The auditorium lights were mostly off, except for a warm spotlight on the stage, where Emily was arranging recycled glass vases and lamps made from ice cream containers. That evening's event would be the city's first big community exhibit on sustainable design, her idea, brought to life with the help of dozens of volunteers and neighborhood kids. It felt strange being there. Strange and wonderful. A space that once seemed reserved for the wealthy and powerful was now filled with plastic chairs, paper streamers, and drawings taped to the walls. And even though it was simple, the place was packed. Journalists, mothers with their kids, small business owners, everyone wanted to see the work of the girl who started with a mop and became a symbol of creativity. Gabriel arrived 10 minutes before it started. No bodyguards, no entourage. Just him, wearing a light shirt, dress pants without a jacket, and a look that said he wasn't quite sure how he felt. He sat in the back row, watching Emily on stage with the focus of someone watching a play. He saw her adjust the banner that read, "Creative Exhibit Handmade," kneel to place a sculpture made of bent silverware, and smile at a child running down the aisle with a drawing in hand. Then, the lights came on fully. The audience clapped, and Emily stepped to the center of the stage with a microphone. Her voice, though steady, carried emotion. "Good evening. First, if you came here expecting a fancy event with a cocktail bar and live music, I'm sorry to disappoint. But if you came looking for inspiration, real stories, and ideas that fit both your budget and your heart, then yes, you're in the right place." The audience laughed, the kind of laugh that hides admiration. Emily continued, "Everything you see here was made with discarded materials. And with something you can't buy in any store, the desire to make a difference. I don't have a design degree. I've never been called an influencer, but I've learned that sometimes what we do with what we have is more powerful than what we buy with what's left over." The audience clapped again, louder this time. Gabriel swallowed hard. In that moment, he saw it clearly. Emily no longer needed his approval. She didn't depend on his validation or anyone else's. The world was finally seeing what he had been too afraid to admit. She was extraordinary, and he had been too small when it mattered most. The event continued with children's performances, short behind-the-scenes videos, and a special moment when Emily invited some of the residents who helped build the project to join her on stage. Each one shared their story. A 70-year-old woman talked about how she learned to dream again. A former house painter showed his artwork made with leftover paint found in the trash. A teenage girl who nearly dropped out of school spoke about how Emily encouraged her to turn her old notebooks into art. There was no background music or special effects, but each story hit straight in the heart. The kind of hit that changes you, that wakes you up. After nearly 2 hours, people started saying goodbye. Emily, tired but happy, sat at the edge of the stage, kicked off her tight shoes and rubbed her aching feet. That's when she heard footsteps approaching. She looked down the center aisle, and there he was. Gabriel. Serious, his eyes steady, fearless, something different. Something more. Open. She sighed, but didn't get up. "Came to see if I'm really good with glass and hot glue?" she asked, not quite looking at him. "No, I came to see with my own eyes what was already obvious. You've built something far greater than anything I've ever done." She gave a faint smile. "Good to know. Now all that's left is for you to say that out loud when people claim I got ahead because of your name." "You rose because you were never afraid to start from the bottom," he said, stepping closer. "And I was afraid. Afraid to be seen with you in public. Afraid of looking weak. Afraid of what people would say. And in that fear, I lost myself." Emily looked up. Her eyes were bright, but there was no bitterness in them. Just tiredness and a trace of hope. "You left me alone when I needed you most, Gabriel. And just because you're standing here now saying all the right things doesn't mean it all disappears." He nodded. "I know. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to ask for a chance to do things differently. To prove it with actions, not words." "Actions like what?" "Like this." He pulled something from the inside pocket of his shirt and held it out to her. A laminated document. Emily took it and read it. It was a land transfer contract for a property on the outskirts of the city. At the bottom of the page, her name. "What is this?" "A donation. For you to build your own community development center. The Emily Lane Project, independent from me. No ties to North Enterprises. Just yours." She stayed silent for a long moment. "You're really willing to give this up without putting your name on it?" "You're the one who taught me the difference between getting credit and having purpose." She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, he was still there, standing, waiting, vulnerable. Emily stepped off the stage slowly, stood face to face with him. "You took a long time to get here." "I know." She held the contract, took a deep breath. "Then listen to me, Gabriel. I don't want flowers or speeches. If you want to stand by me, you'll have to sit on the floor with the kids, glue paper with flour paste, and walk around with glitter on your forehead from time to time. Deal? And no sending a driver, okay? Around here, we ride in the back of Mrs. Olga's truck when we need to." "Got it. I once held Steve on my lap in a 3.2-star Uber. I think I can handle Olga." Emily smiled. A soft, clear smile. The kind that closes one chapter and opens another. There, between recycled planters and paper flags, under lights she had hung with nylon thread, Gabriel and Emily took their first real step. Not a step back into the past, but one toward what they could build together, with dirty hands, feet on the ground, and hearts wide open. The week after the event was one of the calmest Emily had experienced in years. Not because everything was fixed, or life had stopped making demands, but because, for the first time, she was at peace with her own choices. She now knew exactly who she was, what she was capable of, and how far she'd come without shrinking or hiding to meet anyone's expectations. Gabriel seemed like a different man, too. After the event, he started showing up at the community center every day, sometimes to help, other times just to sit in the shade and watch. He watched the children laugh, the older women painting walls, the teens turning soda cans into lamps, but most of all, he watched Emily. It was as if seeing that world through her eyes made him more human. One ordinary Saturday, Gabriel showed up earlier than usual. Emily was still sweeping the main hall when she saw him walk in with Noah by his side. The boy was holding a large box with a big red bow. "We brought reinforcements," Gabriel said as Noah stepped forward with the excitement of someone about to reveal a secret. "This is for you," the boy announced. "We made it together." Emily slowly opened the box. Inside, a miniature model. The new community center Gabriel had donated, with every detail crafted from cardboard held together with tape and love. She smiled, holding back tears. "Noah, this is amazing. Dad helped with the measurements, but the rooftop garden was my idea." Gabriel cleared his throat, a little awkward. "She asked for something green. I just added things up." Emily knelt down to hug the boy, her heart warming. "You should consider a career in architecture." "Only if you're my client," he replied, eyes shining. That afternoon, they spent hours building and rebuilding little spaces with toy blocks. Gabriel, his suit jacket slung over the back of a chair, helped Noah glue windows onto the model, while Emily poured lemonade into an old thermos. It was a simple moment. Quiet. Homely. But somehow, full of meaning. There they were, the billionaire, the former cleaning lady, and the bright-hearted boy, unknowingly building something that felt a lot like a family. Emily still kept her feet on the ground. She knew real life wasn't a fairy tale. But it was hard not to imagine a future filled with what-ifs. What if this lasted? What if he really was changing? What if, this time, a happy ending was actually possible? But every calm carries a hidden cloud. And that one arrived on Monday. While organizing some papers at the makeshift reception desk, Emily received an envelope with no return address. Thick paper, sealed with red wax. When she opened it, she found a court summons. The building Gabriel had donated was being contested by Harper, his ex-wife. She claimed the donation violated their divorce agreement and that half of Gabriel's assets were still under review before being transferred. Emily read it again and again. The words blurred before her eyes, but the message was clear. The community center was now part of a legal dispute. Gabriel arrived 30 minutes later and found her standing in the hallway, the envelope still in her hand. "You knew about this?" she asked directly. He frowned, took the paper, and read it right there. His face hardened. "No. This is Harper's doing. She can't stand that I made a decision without her. But you should have seen this coming. You knew it could be a problem. Why didn't you warn me?" "Because I didn't think she'd go after this." "She didn't just go after the project, Gabriel. She went after me. Again. And once again, you stayed silent until it was too late." He stepped closer, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'll fix this. I have the best lawyers. This will be undone." "And in the meantime, the school we were setting up here, the class that starts next week, are we supposed to wait for the paperwork to sign off on hope?" Gabriel didn't respond. He knew she was right. Not for donating the building, but for not protecting her from the legal fallout. If you really want to be part of this, Gabriel, you need to stop treating the world like it's your chessboard. Around here, we play with broken pieces, and still, we win. He lowered his eyes, swallowing his pride. "You're right. I always was, but now, it hurts." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She thought about the center, the children, the elderly, the women who relied on that place as a space to grow and breathe. She thought about how her life had turned into an emotional roller coaster on shaky tracks, and she thought about him. The next day, Gabriel came back. But this time, he brought Noah and a folder. "This is the new contract. I spent the night with my lawyers. The building is now in the name of a new foundation, separate from me, personally or legally. It's called the Lane Foundation. You're the president. I'm just a donor." Emily took the folder, read it silently, then looked up. "You got me out of this." "No, I just stepped out of the way. Now it's all yours, officially. Legally, with protection, the way it should have been from the start." She closed the folder, took a deep breath. "Thank you." Gabriel took a step forward, then stopped. "I don't expect anything in return. Just keep doing what you do. The world needs it." Emily nodded, but deep down, something inside her still trembled. Not everything was forgiven, but maybe it was starting to heal. The signed contract was still on the table at the community center when Emily looked out the window and saw Gabriel outside, sitting on the concrete bench with Noah next to him. They were both holding a bag of popcorn and seriously debating whether a rocket made from a plastic bottle could really fly. She wasn't in a hurry to join them. She just watched. For the first time, she looked at that man with the freedom of knowing that what they had now didn't depend on favors or debts. He wasn't the boss anymore. She wasn't the exception. They were. Just two people trying to find their rhythm in a world where nothing was predictable. Gabriel laughed. Really laughed. throwing his head back with his eyes closed. Noah nudged his arm, saying he didn't know anything about toy physics, and Gabriel responded with an overly dramatic act of defeat, falling to the side on the bench. Emily came down the front steps without being seen. When she got closer, Noah was the first to notice. "Emily, Dad says gravity doesn't apply to bottle rockets." "Well," she answered, crossing her arms, "he might be right. Some adults' egos also seem to float way above the clouds." Gabriel pretended to be offended. "Was that a jab at me?" It was almost direct. Noah laughed out loud, tossing popcorn in the air and trying to catch it with his mouth. Right then, it felt like time had paused, like the world's clock had taken a generous break to let that unlikely trio create a memory. A good one. The kind you keep where it matters. Gabriel invited the two of them on an outing the next weekend. Not a fancy dinner or a social event. Just a day outside the city, at a fruit farm where visitors could pick what they wanted and pay by the pound. Emily found the invite odd. Him? A billionaire? At a farm? "You sure you won't collapse if the ground isn't paved?" she joked. "Only if I step on a worm and it yells out my social security number," he replied. And off they went. The day was clear, the sky wide open like it rarely was that time of year. Noah ran through the rows of strawberry plants, his shirt already stained red within the first hour. Emily wore a wide hat borrowed from Mrs. Ruth and carried a wicker basket on her arm. Gabriel, well, he wore boots bought just for the occasion, and looked like he was trying hard to act natural, holding the basket with one hand and swatting bees with the other. But little by little, he relaxed. When Noah tripped and landed in a haystack, laughing at himself, Gabriel didn't rush over worried. He sat next to him and laughed too. Emily, a few feet away, smiled instinctively. It was strange to see them like that. Naturally connected. No effort, no script. Late in the afternoon, they had corn cake on a wooden porch while the sun slowly set, coloring everything orange. It was there, resting her head against the bench, that Emily felt something new. It wasn't just admiration anymore. Not just affection. It was the kind of love that grows when you see someone let go of their pride, not to impress, but to belong. And Gabriel, he didn't need to say anything anymore. His eyes said it all. It was like he was finally watching life unfold in real time, without the thick glass of hurry and power keeping him from the things that matter. On the way back, Noah fell asleep in the back seat. Emily sat in the front, watching the road. The music on the radio was soft. Gabriel drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. There was silence between them, but it was a good silence. Full, rich, not the kind that makes you uncomfortable, but the kind that soothes. "Thanks for today," he said, eyes still on the road. "You did well, even picked real fruit without worrying about the price." "I have to admit I'm traumatized by strawberries. I think I picked about 30 bad ones before finding a good one," she smiled. But then her voice softened. "You really want this, don't you?" "Want what?" "This family thing. Even after everything, you still want to build something." He took a deep breath. The road was long, the headlights lit only what was needed, and his answer came out as honest as could be. "I do, but I'm not in a rush. Not with you." Emily turned her head toward him. There was something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. A kind of surrender, yes, but also care. "I'm not easy, Gabriel, and I'm no prize. The difference is, now I know that." She looked down for a moment, then turned back to the window. When they got to her place, Noah was still asleep. Gabriel carried him in his arms to the trailer door. Emily unlocked it carefully and made room for him to lay the boy down on the old couch, covered with a colorful blanket. "He feels at home here," Gabriel whispered. "It's because there's real love here, and sandwich cookies hidden behind the flour," she replied. Gabriel let out a soft laugh. "And me? Can I feel at home here too?" She looked at him. She almost didn't answer. She just nodded. He stepped closer, slowly, their faces just inches apart, breathing in sync, but they didn't kiss. Not yet. It wasn't the right time, because when love is real, waiting is part of building something meaningful. And in that moment, Emily realized, the past may have hurt, but the future was still unwritten, and maybe finally ready to be rewritten. The calm settling between Emily and Gabriel was like an autumn morning, warm, beautiful, quietly fragile. And like any season that's too calm, it always carries the promise of sudden change. Life at the community center continued steadily. Emily was leading the new children's workshop wing, Gabriel helped with building improvements, and Noah already called the main room my second home. Everything seemed at last in place. Emotional stability, mutual respect, trust. But as Emily knew too well, when life starts feeling too good, it's often because something is about to fall apart. It all started with an envelope, another one, but this time with her name handwritten on it. It was a simple letter, yellowed paper, carefully folded, no postage mark. Someone had quietly left it at the front desk of the community center. Emily opened it cautiously, and within the first few lines she felt the ground shift beneath her. Emily, you don't know me, but I know your story. And I know who Gabriel North really is, more than you can imagine. He destroyed my family, and now he's trying to look like a good man. Don't fall for it. I have proof. The letter was signed by Valerie Whitmore, a name Emily had never heard before. But in the following paragraphs, the woman gave too many details to be making it up. The name of the company Gabriel used to be a partner in, the multi-million-dollar bankruptcy case that affected dozens of families, including hers. The letter didn't just accuse, it gave dates, places, and context. It was clear, articulate, and disturbing. Emily read every line twice. Then, without saying a word to anyone, she left early. She didn't want to confront Gabriel until she was sure. But she couldn't look at him either, not until she understood what was behind that piece of paper. That night, she spent hours digging through the city's digital records, old newspapers, forgotten blogs, business forums. And there it was, North Partners, 2014. A scandal covered up by a good PR team. Gabriel had left the partnership months before the bankruptcy was declared. Officially, he had no part in the financial collapse. But the rumors said otherwise. Some said he saw it coming, that he sold his share just before it all went under, avoiding blame and losses. Emily felt a cold ache rise through her spine. It was the kind of discovery that shattered the image she had been building of him. And worse, it was the kind of silence that, coming from Gabriel, didn't feel entirely unexpected. The next day, she showed up at the community center as usual, but something in her eyes was missing. Gabriel noticed and tried to come closer, but she stepped aside. Avoided him. He was confused. Did something happen? She looked at him for a moment. She wanted to ask right then, but there were kids nearby, Noah nearby. "We'll talk later," was all she said. Later, after everyone had left, she called him into an empty room, closed the door, slowly laid the letter on the table. "Let's play a game with anyone just reading the comments? Write Pepsi Cola in the comments. Only those who got this far will understand." Now back to the story. Gabriel read in silence. He didn't try to deny it, didn't fake surprise. He just looked at the envelope, then at her. "So you know." Emily crossed her arms, her breath tight in her chest. "You knew this was out there, that this existed, and you never told me. Why?" "Because I didn't think it mattered." She let out a bitter laugh. "Didn't matter. You leaving a company that ruined families, right before it collapsed, and never being held accountable. That's not important. I left because I saw it was going downhill. I tried to warn the others. They didn't listen. I protected what was mine. And what about the others? Who protected them?" He sighed, rubbed his face, sat down. "I did what any businessman would have done. I acted within the law." Emily stepped closer slowly. "But what about your conscience?" Silence. Gabriel didn't answer, and that silence hurt more than any confession could. She sat across from him, her heart torn between the love she felt and the sense of justice she had always stood for. "Are you still the same man from back then?" He hesitated. "I don't know. I want to believe I'm not." "So do I." She stood up and walked to the window. The sky was beginning to darken. "The problem isn't what you did in the past, Gabriel. It's what you didn't have the courage to tell me. I opened my life to you. I let you in, and you kept that part locked away." He stepped closer. "I was afraid. Afraid that everything we built would fall apart because of something I didn't know how to explain. And now?" She turned to him, eyes full. "What are you going to do now?" He took a deep breath. "Whatever it takes." But she shook her head and took a step back. "I don't know if that's going to be enough, Gabriel, because what I need right now isn't a perfect answer. It's the truth, and that's something you still haven't given me." Gabriel stood still, watching her walk away. knowing that once again silence, his most comfortable weapon, had become his biggest mistake. Emily left the room, left the building, left his life, at least for now. Outside, the wind was strong. The little flags at the entrance fluttered as if they too felt that something had broken. She walked down the sidewalk to the bus stop, sat down, looked at the sky, and asked herself, how many times can a heart be tested? In the days that followed, the community center felt emptier, even though it was full. The classes went on, the kids ran through the halls, Noah showed up with his drawings and ideas for new projects. But Emily was different, less smiling, less talkative, less present. She was there, but she wasn't. Gabriel saw it every time they crossed paths. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her tone was more reserved. She didn't completely avoid him, but she didn't let him get close either. And he knew why. He knew he had broken something, not through an action, but through a lack of one. And now saying sorry wasn't enough. He would have to show it, prove it, and maybe, more than anything, earn it. It was on a Wednesday afternoon that he decided to do the only thing he truly knew how to do, use his power to fix what he had helped break. But this time, it would be different. No spotlight, no press release, no company involvement. Gabriel returned to the same neighborhood where years ago the collapse of his old company caused a wave of job losses and despair. The area still bore the scars: shuttered stores, abandoned buildings, families in debt. He didn't show up in a fancy suit or with prepared speeches. He wore jeans, a rolled-up shirt, and carried a folder under his arm. He knocked on doors, spoke with people he hadn't seen since 2014, listened to stories he didn't want to hear. People who lost everything, people who never recovered, people who hadn't forgotten. And most of all, people who said, you knew, you just didn't want to get involved. He didn't argue. Not there. Not with them. He just listened, took notes, name by name, case by case. Then went home and spent 2 full days with a legal team reviewing old contracts, analyzing forgotten files, gathering everything that could still be fixed. Gabriel North, the billionaire who used to outsource any emotional effort, was now personally creating a compensation fund with his own money. No tax benefits, no public campaign. The project got a name: New Start. With that fund, former employees harmed by corporate missteps would have access to microloans, job retraining, subsidized housing, and counseling. Only after all that, only after having something real to offer, did Gabriel go to see Emily. She was in the back room, sorting donations. The box of clothes was heavier than it looked, but she carried it steadily. He stopped at the doorway, silent for a few seconds. "You don't give up easily, do you?" she said, without looking up. "Not when it comes to you." She finished stacking the coats, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and turned to him. "So, are you here to explain again why you kept your past from me?" He stepped forward, but stopped a few feet away. Eye to eye. "No. I'm here to show you what I did with it." Gabriel placed the folder on the table, opened it, pulled out a thick envelope stamped with a legal seal, then a notebook full of notes, finally a card with a blue title printed on it: New Start, Community Repair Fund. Emily flipped through the documents in silence, read the names of those who would benefit, recognized some of the companies involved, saw the amounts, the clauses, the signatures. "You did this by yourself?" "With help from good people. But yes, I started it because I needed to do what's right, because even if the world never asked for it, my conscience always would." She didn't say anything, just kept flipping through the pages. "Why now?" "Because it was only after I met you that I understood doing the right thing isn't just about avoiding what's wrong. It's about going as far as it takes to fix what we broke." She looked at him, her eyes softer now, but still cautious, like someone who had been hurt before. "And what do you expect from this, Gabriel? A thank you? Forgiveness?" He shook his head. "No, I just wanted you to know that it wasn't just words, that I heard what you said, and for the first time I did something. Not for me, but for everyone I hurt along the way." She closed the folder, rested her hands on top of it, and took a deep breath. "You know what I admired the most about all of this?" "What?" "That you didn't post it, didn't record it, didn't turn it into some kind of personal marketing. You just did it, and that is rare." Gabriel gave a slight smile, relieved, but he didn't move closer. "I don't know if this changes how you feel about me." "It does," she said sincerely. "It really does." She took 2 steps forward until she was right in front of him, and with one hand gently touched his chest. "But it's still scary." He nodded. "For me too." Emily smiled for the first time in days, a shy, honest smile. "Maybe we're still under construction. You've always liked transforming places, haven't you?" "Places, people, hearts, but I only stay if the foundation is solid." "And is it now?" She looked at him, at everything he represented, at everything he had done, and with a small nod she replied, "It's starting to be." Gabriel didn't hug her, didn't kiss her. He just held her hand, and in that simple gesture there was more promise than in 1,000 speeches. Their new beginning had finally begun. Gabriel held Emily's hand like someone holding something rare. Not with force, but with intention. It was a small gesture, but filled with everything they had been through. The doubts, the silences, the stumbles, the unspoken apologies. They stood there for a while without moving, without speaking, just feeling. Slowly, Emily rested her head on his shoulder. That simple act brought a small, almost childlike smile to Gabriel's face, as if he was afraid that even breathing too loud might ruin the moment. That night, he didn't leave. Not that he stayed in a romantic sense. It wasn't that kind of staying. He simply remained, sitting on the porch of the community center, talking with her under the clear sky, the two of them sharing a bottle of iced tea and old stories. Emily talked about her father who disappeared when she was a little girl, how she learned to fix the trailer's plumbing by herself, using online tutorials, and the time she cried in secret because a teacher told her she would never go far wearing a janitor's uniform. Gabriel listened like someone listening to a song they don't want to end. And for the first time, he shared details he'd never told anyone. He spoke about the emptiness of growing up surrounded by money, the coldness of his parents, the marriage with Harper that was always more of a business deal than a union of souls, and about the fear, the constant fear of never being enough, even when he already had everything. It was there, between shared stories and comforting silences, that their love took on new depth. It wasn't that enchanted love of curious glances or clumsy flirting anymore. It was a mature love, aware, committed. The next day, Noah showed up holding a big piece of poster board. "I want to show you my new project," he announced, smiling. It was a large, colorful drawing where he, Emily, and Gabriel were standing side by side in front of a house with a red roof and a dog, clearly Steve, jumping in the yard. "This is our house. For when you get married." Emily's eyes widened in surprise. Gabriel cleared his throat, trying to hide his reaction. "Oh yeah?" she asked, trying to stay light. Noah nodded, very sure of himself. "I've already decided. You two belong together. And I like you, Emily, more than the other girlfriends Dad had before. You're different. You listen. You don't treat me like a silly kid. And Dad, he's better when he's with you." Gabriel didn't say anything, but Emily noticed him swallow hard. Noah looked at both of them and added, "So, when's the wedding?" Emily and Gabriel looked at each other, surprised by the boy's honesty, but also touched. It wasn't pressure, it was a pure wish. Childish, yes, but true. Emily knelt down so she was at his eye level. "Well, that's something we need to talk about carefully, you know? It takes time, planning. But you already love each other, don't you?" She looked at Gabriel. He looked back, and he answered without hesitation, "Yes, we love each other." Emily was quiet for a moment, letting the weight of that simple phrase settle in. Then she looked at Noah and smiled. "Then I guess you can start drawing the invitations." The boy celebrated like he'd just gotten an early Christmas present, running in circles with the poster board in his hands. Emily and Gabriel laughed, caught somewhere between relief and surprise. After that, everything started falling into place with an ease that felt almost magical. Gabriel began stopping by the trailer more often, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to hear Emily hum while she cooked. He offered to fix the place up, but she turned him down. "This place has history. If we ever move in together, we'll build something new, together. But this is my foundation." Gabriel respected that, and truthfully, he started to enjoy that simpler world. He learned how to use real tools, fixed an old cabinet with the help of one of Noah's videos, and even burned the rice trying to surprise Emily with lunch. They no longer needed grand gestures. They were connected through the little things, the small acts, the presents. One Friday night, Gabriel took her for a walk through a botanical garden that only opened at night on special occasions. Lanterns lit the trails, and the scent of the flowers was strong in the air. At the end of the path, there was a small glass greenhouse with benches. Inside, a simple arrangement awaited them. Daisies, Emily's favorite. She smiled when she saw it, then turned to him. "All this just to propose to me, Gabriel North?" He smiled too, but he didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a delicate ring with a small blue stone, the same shade as her eyes. "No, this is just to show you how much you mean to me. The proposal, that comes later." She picked up the ring carefully, like someone holding something far more precious than jewelry. "It's beautiful. It's you." She hugged him right there, tightly, fully, sincerely. And as they stayed there, surrounded by flowers, soft lights, and the silence only full hearts can create, one thing became clear. The worst was behind them. What they had now was a future. On a cloudy Monday morning, Emily arrived early at the community center to set up for the new gardening class with the kids. It was a normal day, just like many others since peace had settled in again, or so it seemed. Noah ran up to her with his backpack open, pulling out drawings with seeds glued to wet cotton. Gabriel was supposed to come later to help paint the flower pots. Emily had her gloves on, hands in the soil when the phone rang. It was Rachel, one of the assistants at North Enterprises. "Emily, is Gabriel with you?" "No. He said he'd be here around 10. Why?" On the other end, Rachel's voice was urgent. "He was in a car accident on his way to the office." Emily froze. For a moment, the world seemed to slow down. "What do you mean? Is he okay?" "He's conscious, but he was taken to the hospital. It was raining heavily, and the car hydroplaned. He swerved to avoid another vehicle. The crash was bad." Emily hung up before hearing the rest. She dropped everything, asked Mrs. Ruth to watch Noah, and ran. The streets felt longer, louder, farther away. In the taxi, she shook. Fear, uncertainty, the memory of everything she had already lost in life. It all came back at once, like someone had forced open the door to a locked room. She arrived at the hospital, heart racing, asked at the front desk, was taken to the second floor. When she entered the room, she saw Gabriel lying there, arm bandaged, a few scrapes on his face and a tired look. But alive. She ran to him. "Are you out of your mind?" It was the first thing she could say, eyes full of tears. "Wasn't it enough to almost lose you once? Now you want to scare me to death?" Gabriel gave a weak smile. "I wanted to see you this morning. I was going to bring you coffee and cheese bread from that place you love. And you thought you needed to flip a car for that? Just wanted to speed up the surprise." She held his hand tightly, sat on the edge of the bed, took a deep breath. "When they called me, for a second, I thought I was going to lose you. Again, and I realized I'm not ready for that." He turned to look at her. His gaze was intense, even through the pain. "Emily, marry me." She blinked. "What? No flowers, no new ring, no garden lights, just here with the smell of antiseptic and hospital air. But honest, you and me, the realest way possible." Emily felt her chest tighten, and then she opened up. "Are you sure? You're really going to propose all banged up and with messy hair?" "Well, now I have an excuse if you say no. I can blame the concussion." She laughed, tears running down her face. "Yes, Gabriel, yes. But not just because you asked now. Yes, because I already said yes a while ago. I just needed you to be the man you are today." He breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. At that moment, Noah ran into the room with a new drawing in hand. "Did you guys get married?" Emily and Gabriel looked at each other. "We did," she said. "Right here." Noah climbed up on the bed carefully, hugging them both. "Now we're officially a trio." Gabriel laughed, even through the pain. Emily rested her head on his shoulder. And there, in room 208 of an ordinary hospital, no decorations, no flowers, no music. What many would call the most important moment of their lives was born, not because of the proposal, but because, for the first time, there was no doubt. They belonged to each other, and they were ready to build whatever came next, together. Time seemed to move differently after that day in the hospital. Gabriel needed 2 weeks of rest because of a fractured arm, but he didn't let that pull him away from his routine. In fact, he started showing up even more at the community center, now with Noah always by his side, and almost always holding Emily's hand. If the bond between the three had been beautiful before, Now it was clearly unbreakable. It wasn't just the accident that had changed something. It was the certainty. When fear knocked on the door, Emily realized she couldn't imagine life without him anymore. And Gabriel, for the first time, stopped trying to control time, the future, and all the possibilities. He simply chose to live. "I don't want a wedding in a 5-star hotel," Emily said one afternoon while they were organizing paperwork on the center's porch. "And you won't have one," Gabriel replied with a smile, "unless the hotel accepts payment in recycled flower pots and Noah's drawings." She laughed without hesitation. "I want something that's ours, something with meaning, something that fits who we are." And that's how they decided. The wedding would be held in the backyard of the community center, with sunflowers planted by the kids, little flags made from leftover paper, and chairs borrowed from neighbors. Gabriel refused to rent an expensive suit. He wanted to wear a simple, light linen shirt that matched Emily's dress. Also simple, sewn by Donna Ruth and carefully altered by one of the sewing students. Noah took charge of the invitations. He made each one by hand, with colored pencils and glitter. A lot of glitter. He invited school friends, the supermarket security guard, the lady who sold candy on the corner, and even the bus driver who passed Emily's trailer every morning. "It's a wedding," he said. "Everybody needs to know real love exists." And it truly did. On the big day, the sun came out shyly, the kind of light that doesn't burn, just warms. The children ran through the yard holding baskets with paper petals. Steve, the dog, wore a little blue bow tie, because according to Noah, every best man should look sharp. Emily walked slowly between the rows of chairs. Her white dress was light with lace details on the shoulders and a simple ribbon around the waist. Her hair was in its usual messy bun, but with a small flower on the left side. A touch from Noah. People stood up. Gabriel stood at the improvised altar, barely able to hold back his smile. He wore the light linen shirt, beige pants, and eyes that sparkled. He had never looked so calm, so complete. As Emily reached him, he held out. "You look beautiful," he whispered. "You're alive," she replied, which is already a miracle on its own. Everyone laughed. The ceremony was heartfelt but light, with no over-the-top moments. A neighbor from the community, who was also a pastor, led the vows with warmth and simplicity. Love that starts on the ground, literally with a mop in hand, can grow to be the strongest of all. Because it's already proven it can survive the dust, the stumbles, and even the falls. Gabriel and Emily, you are proof that love doesn't need luxury, only truth. Noah brought the rings. They were in a small box he made himself from recycled wood, with E+G carved in with the tip of a compass. Gabriel slid the ring onto Emily's finger with a steady look. "I promise to be the man you've taught me to be, and to love you with the same respect you gave me, even when I didn't deserve it." Emily, with slightly shaking hands, placed the ring on Gabriel's finger. "I promise to laugh with you, grow with you, and keep telling you the truth, even when you don't want to hear it." The guests applauded. Steve barked. The kids tossed the petals, and their kiss came naturally, like everything between them, real, strong, and sincere. The reception was a mix of celebration and community. There was a cake with a lopsided top, soda in plastic cups, music played by a local guitarist, and plenty of dancing in the middle of the yard. Noah gave a speech, handwritten and with a few made-up words, saying that now his life was a little more colorful and tasted like cornbread. "Emily is my mom at heart, and now Dad has someone to tell him when he's wrong. I think that's important," Emily cried. Gabriel did too. At the end of the afternoon, when most of the guests had left, the three of them sat together on the steps of the community center, barefoot, holding hands. "You know," Emily said, watching the sky change colors, "sometimes I still feel like I'm dreaming." Gabriel glanced at her. "I dreamed about you for a long time. I just didn't know you had a name and a messy bun. And a mop," she added, laughing. "Especially the mop." Noah, lying with his head resting on both their laps, looked up at the sky and whispered, "Do you think I'll love like that one day too?" Emily and Gabriel looked at each other. "You will," Gabriel replied, "but you have to start by loving who you are. And never let anyone convince you that you're worth less just because your shirt is wrinkled or your shoes aren't new," Emily added. Noah smiled drowsy. "All right then, but when I get married, I want brigadeiros at my party, okay?" deal," they both said at the same time. There, among laughter, bits of confetti, and the soft evening light, a new chapter was beginning. The story that started with a misunderstanding, a dirty floor, and a sideways glance now closed with a kiss of love, a meaningful yes, and a boy wrapped in both their arms. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. What did you think of Gabriel and Emily's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate this story? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to follow all our stories. And be sure to check out more heartwarming stories right here on the end screen.